Ayo. All right. Now that I've started this off really stupidly, welcome to episode 1 of Tanner Talks. If you haven't watched the intro video, go ahead, watch that intro video, I guess, where I kind of lay out what I'm going to be primarily talking about on this channel, on this podcast and whatnot. But yeah, welcome to episode 1. Thank you for joining if you're joining. But I'm really excited for this. I've actually been looking forward to this for a while. And now here we are. So I'm excited to get started. I've got my notes ready. I've got my computer ready. And if it looks like I'm reading a script, I swear to God I'm not reading a script. I just have a couple notes written out for what I want to talk about. But, I mean, I swear to God I'm not writing a script word for word. That being said, today's episode it kind of came together this way somewhat unintentionally. I wanted to do an episode about Us, the new horror movie. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's gotten kind of national attention, big mainstream media push, because it's Jordan Peele's second film. And what kind of lined up accidentally almost is that this episode is going to be somewhat Jordan Peele themed, because today I actually ended up watching the first episode of the Twilight Zone, which is the remake that they're doing on CBS's new streaming platform, which I think is called like CBS All Access or something really stupid. But yeah, I don't know. They put the first episode of it up on YouTube for free, so everyone can watch it on YouTube, and I recommend that you watch it because I actually really liked it, and of course we'll get more into that later. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of disappointing that they've got it behind a paywall. I don't know. We'll get more into that later, I guess. But anyway, Jordan Peele is the host of that new Twilight Zone remake that they're doing on CBS. And so I ended up watching that first episode today, and I already knew I wanted to talk about Us, but now I've got Us and the Twilight Zone episode. So this first episode is going to be horror themed. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Us and a little bit on the Twilight Zone as well. So before I go forward, I just want to say in regards to this with Us, I'm going to be talking about spoilers, obviously. So if you haven't seen it, first of all, go see it. It's really good. I would recommend it. But don't expect me to not spoil it, because I will be talking about spoilers here. So I'll try and put like a timestamp below of when you can skip forward if you want to keep watching but don't have the movie spoiled. So but I'm also kind of new at the editing stuff too, so if I don't get that timestamp in there, don't hate me, I swear to God. Anyways, let's talk about Us. So from here on out, spoilers ahead. So just a couple notes on this. So Us is Jordan Peele's second horror film, second film in general, I believe. But obviously Get Out was the first one that came out 2017, I believe. And then this is the follow-up, the sophomore film. I actually liked this film better than Get Out. But first, let me just give you a couple notes on Us. So Us came out March 22nd, 2019, which is 2 weeks ago from today, because as I am speaking, it is Friday, April 5th. So 2 weeks ago today, Us came out. on March 22nd. According to IMDb, it made $71,117,625 in the opening weekend. And according to IMDb as well, so far it has grossed $138,582,995 as of April 4th, which is yesterday. So, as I said, I liked this film better than Get Out, I think. And I think the reason that I don't want to say I didn't like Get Out, but I felt as if it was severely overrated. And I think the reason I felt that way was because I feel like a lot of the praise that Get Out got was just because it was such a politically charged movie that everyone felt like they had to give it this huge hype behind it and give it this really high praise and everything. And that's not, of course, that's not to say that I didn't like the movie. I liked the movie. I just felt like it was slightly overrated. Now, that said, to be fair, I don't remember the last time I've seen Get Out. It's been a while. And I actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if I ever actually saw it twice. It's possible I just saw it in the theaters when it came out, and that's it. I may have never done a rewatch on it. So, I'm not sure. But, again, still being said, I liked Us better. Now, in terms, like I was just talking about with the political stuff, I think Us is much less politically charged, less politically driven. Well, I should rephrase that. It's less on the nose and less obvious about its political messages. But if you do some digging, Jordan Peele actually reveals that there is political messages within it, but they're much more subtle than they were in Get Out. They talk about how like the tethered represent the minorities of America, and how they just don't have as much, people forget about them basically. So it is, there are political messages within it, but it's much less focused on that, whereas I felt Get Out was very focused on the political messages, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not my number one thing that I really love. I try and just stay out of politics for the most part. So when it comes to Us, I've seen it twice now. It's been out 2 weeks. I've seen it twice now. And it's definitely one of those movies that I would highly recommend you see at least a second time. It's one of those movies that definitely requires a rewatch. So I've seen it 2 times now within the 2 weeks that it's been out. And when I was going to watch it the second time, the first time I watched it was here at school, and I go to the University of Missouri, by the way, despite the fact that I'm wearing this Wisconsin t-shirt. The first time I saw it was here at school, and then the second time I saw it was when I went home over spring break, and I saw it with my family. And I was equally as excited, if not even, I may have even been more excited to see it the second time, because there's so many things that you miss the first time around. And that's why it's so important that you watch it a second time around. There's so many subtle details within the film that you really have to like see it again just to get a grasp on it. I would give this film, if I had to give it like a grade, I would give it like within the 85 to 90% range. After the first time I watched it, I said like I give it a 90%. And actually my friends that I went to watch it with, they didn't like it that much. I think they graded it like a 70% or like a 77 or something like that. I enjoyed it. I really did. That being said, going into watching the movie, it was very hyped up in my mind. And obviously it was hyped up, you know? There were those ads that I would keep seeing on Hulu or on YouTube or whatever on TV. And the thing that I kept seeing was that one ad that said, one of the critics called it the greatest horror movie of all time. And when you see such a bold statement like that, that's really difficult to wrap your head around. You know, I was really excited to see this film, but at the same time, I felt like I was going into it knowing that it had that much hype, where I was like, let's see if this film stacks up to everything that it's supposed to be. That being said, again, I really actually did like it. I did like it a lot. But is it the greatest horror movie of all time? No. For me, my money is on Hereditary for the greatest horror movie of all time. But that's another story for another episode. Maybe I'll do that down the line where I do a Hereditary breakdown, because that for me is no movie has ever affected me like that movie did. But is it the greatest horror movie of all time? Us? No, it's not. So there's a lot of hype behind it. It's still a good movie though. Within that though, there's a lot of like, when I first watched it and I got out of the theater, I hopped on Twitter and I just had a lot of thoughts after I saw it the first time. Just a lot of random thoughts that I had about it. And I want to kind of share some of those thoughts with you guys here. So there's also a lot of logical flaws with the movie too. And part of watching the movie, I feel like, is you have to be able to, if you're going to accept the movie as a good movie, you have to be able to get over some certain glaring logical flaws. And if you can get over those flaws, then you can accept the movie as good or as bad, you know, whatever you want to call it. But a couple of the logic flaws that I want to go over, and here again, we're getting into the major spoilers here, but so essentially the tethered, like, we're just supposed to believe that there's, you know, millions and millions of clones for every single human in America, because one thing to keep in mind with this movie is that it's just in America, because there's references to the government. So this is clearly, it's a government experiment, which means that it's just in America. So this isn't happening worldwide. We have to keep that in mind. But still, America, obviously one of the biggest countries in the world, and we're just supposed to believe that there's, you know, millions and millions of clones living for every single person in America, living in some random tunnels below the United States. I mean, it's kind of a lot to accept. And then another really funny point that I've watched a lot of videos on, like the Us Explained like kind of videos. And they all bring up great points. If you want to go more into it, I would suggest just typing in Us Explained on YouTube. There's a lot of great videos that just do a good job of breaking it down. They go into a lot of really good points about it. But one of the funnier thoughts or just logical flaws with the movie is where did they get all those red jumpsuits from, and where did they get all those shears from, the scissors from? Like, were they just down there? They had them the whole time, or did they make them? So that's just another, like, you have to kind of accept that they all got these red jumpsuits and these scissors from somewhere, and where they got them from, who knows? But let's see. Oh, there was a major continuity error that I picked up on when I watched it the second time around. And then this really bugged me after I noticed it. And I went on Twitter to see if anyone else was talking about it. I couldn't really find anyone else who was talking about it. I think I found like one tweet or something maybe that kind of referenced it. But so the mom, which obviously if you've seen the movie, you know that she's actually the tethered version of her the whole time. That's the big twist at the end, clearly. But in the beginning, when the tethered family first enters the home, the Red is the name of the character, the tethered, even though we know it's not actually the tethered version, but the tethered version of the mom gives her the handcuffs and says, "Cuff yourself to the table." So she puts one cuff on one of her wrists and the other cuff on to the coffee table. And then obviously later she breaks out. She uses that the fire stick poker or whatever to break the table. And so she breaks out. So she should have one cuff on her wrist and one cuff dangling because she broke out. But then somehow later she has the other cuff on her other wrist. And the only way that would have happened is if she put it there herself, which why would she do that? If she had one arm free, she could have just had the handcuffs dangling there the whole time. Why would she handcuff herself so that she's restrained? And it comes up, it actually plays kind of a prominent role because in the scene where they're trying to drive away from the rich family's house or whatever, the mom tries to get in the car to go in the driver's seat, and the daughter, whose name is Zora, I believe, is in the driver's seat, and she's like, "Get out, you can't drive," because she's like 14 or something. And she's like, "Well, dad's leg is hurt and mom's handcuffed, so she can't drive." And I was like, "Well, but she's not handcuffed. She just has the one on the one wrist." And then we see later that she has them on both wrists. And it comes up when she's when she goes down to the tunnel or whatever where the tethered live, and she fights with the other version of her. You could see that she's handcuffed in both of her hands. So that kind of pissed me off when I watched it the second time around and I caught it, because I was like, well, that's a major continuity error and it just doesn't make sense. Some other thoughts that I had were just, nobody had a gun. Like, nobody had a gun. Because if there was just one person that had a gun, a lot of this could have been prevented. But nowhere in the movie does it ever reference anyone having a gun. Like, one person with just even a semi-powerful gun, and I don't know anything about guns really, but would just, you know, we know that there's lots of semi-automatic rifles out there. One person with just one of those could have done some serious damage to all these tethereds coming up and trying to take over America, but I guess nobody in California had a gun. And that leads me to my other thought is, why does stuff like this always happen in California? This takes place in Santa Cruz, I believe, which is Southern California. I want to see a movie like this where there's like a takeover, and I want it to happen in like Ohio or Pennsylvania or something. Like, why does it always have to be California? That kind of annoyed me. It's just, I don't know. It's so Hollywood, I guess, but why does it always have to be California? And then another one of my thoughts was that as I was watching it, kind of the first sort of scene, or just first I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just like the first section of the film where the Tethereds actually get in with the family and they're in the house and whatever. As I was watching it the first time around and even the second time around too, I couldn't help but think that it just was somewhat ripping off. It felt like a loose ripoff of The Strangers Prey at Night, which is another horror film that came out. There's an original version of it that came out in, I want to say like 2008 maybe, but then there was a remake that came out in either 2017 or 2018. I went to see the remake in theaters. I really liked it. Basically what it is it's just strangers, which is why, The Strangers Prey at Night. But it's these strangers, these just totally random people in these really, really creepy masks that just pick this one family that's kind of isolated because they're in like a cabin or something. They just pick an isolated family and they just decide that they're going to start torturing and killing them. And it felt like a loose ripoff. Felt like a loose ripoff of Strangers Prey at Night to me, because in that sort of just broad, generic sense of just torturing and killing this isolated family, which I guess is, it's a very like broad theme within horror. So I guess you can make the argument that there's lots of loose ripoffs of Strangers Prey at Night. But the thing that kind of made me think that even more was when I watched Strangers Prey at Night a year or two ago when it came out. One of the things that impressed me the most with that movie was the use of music. They use music in that movie, and it's like 80s, 90s, like that kind of music. But it's like music that you would think of as fun, like happy-go-lucky kind of music, like just normal pop music of the 80s and 90s. And then just the way that they integrated it into that film made it so creepy. Songs that you would never think of as creepy became so creepy the way they integrated it into that film. Because they would use it like just a totally random pop song during a scene where someone's dragging an axe and someone else is crawling away trying to get away, and they're just methodically dragging this axe, getting ready to kill that person. And the way that Strangers Prey at Night used music to me really stood out. And then in Us, that's when it kind of clicked with me, like, oh, this is kind of a loose ripoff of Strangers Prey at Night, because there's the scene where the family goes over to the rich family's lake place or beach house, whatever you want to call it. And they have that thing, what was it called? Oh, Ophelia, I think is what they called it, but it's clearly Amazon Alexa, but they called it Ophelia. And it starts playing music while the killings are going on, and it's like pop music. Very similar. It just had a very similar, in that scene, in that moment, it had such a similar vibe to Strangers Prey at Night that it made me just feel like it was a loose ripoff. Now, after that scene, obviously the story's different and the story evolves and the story changes, but just for a brief moment of time, it had me feeling like, oh, this is kind of just a ripoff of a movie I saw a year ago. But very loosely, just thematically, it was somewhat the same. My last thought that I have written down is that after, and I have to be completely honest, I didn't have this thought at all when I first saw the movie. So credit to the people who did have this thought. But if you look into it, the son, Jason, is probably switched at some point with his tethered just like the mom was. The mom's not the only person who was switched. And you can look into it. And there was a really good video that I found. Like I said, after I watched it the first time, I watched a whole bunch of like those explained videos, and there was a really good one I found. And this guy broke it down about why the big twist at the end, obviously, is that the mom was switched, but she's not the only one. Jason, the son, is switched also probably, and he does a great job of breaking down and explaining why there's so many subtle signs that point to the fact that he's switched, and it's really interesting. And by the end of the video that I watched with him, I was like, oh yeah, that probably happened. And then so when I watched it the second time, I was looking for those clues, and there's a ton of clues. It's if you watch the film knowing that the son is probably switched as well, it's hard to ignore the amount of times that they're trying to like clue you in on that. They're throwing clues at you left and right that the son is probably switched as well. So I'll try and link the video that I'm talking about below in the description. But you should definitely check it out, because after I watched it and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, the son's probably definitely switched as well. And I think people have asked Jordan Peele about that, and he's kind of declined to comment on it. But it seems like it's definitely the son was probably switched as well. And then I think my final thought on Us here was just this movie has created the best Halloween costume, the easiest Halloween costume, I should say, of all time. Because all you have to do is just get a red jumpsuit and a big pair of scissors. And I've already got a really big pair of scissors right here. I just need a red jumpsuit, and I've been looking for an excuse to buy a jumpsuit anyway. So the thing is, with it being, well, it's April now, it's March when the movie came out. Halloween is a long ways away, so will this still be relevant by then? I hope so. But I would fully expect when Halloween rolls around to see red jumpsuits as Halloween costumes on the shelves and whatnot. And one of the interviews I watched with Jordan Peele, somebody did say, you've created the easiest Halloween costume of all time, and it's true. And after I watched it, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I know what I'm doing for Halloween. I'm going to be the tethered version of myself. Just go around with a red jumpsuit and just a big pair of scissors. I don't know if you can get that leather glove somewhere. It might be difficult, but I'm sure that'll be a Halloween costume kit. I'm sure. Let me try and look it up now, actually. I wonder if anybody has this yet. I'm sure, though, by the time Halloween rolls around, Us Halloween costume, yeah. I'm sure by the time Halloween rolls around, there's going to be tons of kits with a red jumpsuit, a leather glove, a single leather glove, and a pair of golden scissors. I'm not really seeing it. It doesn't look like. I mean, it's not Halloween season yet, so there's no real point in making it yet, I suppose. But anyways, I'm sure by the time Halloween rolls around, there's going to be lots and lots of red jumpsuits, leather gloves, and scissors, gold scissors. There's actually a reason for that leather glove, too. I think Jordan Peele broke it down about how many people have worn, like, a single glove. He said, like, Freddy Krueger, I don't know. There's a reason for it, though, if you look it up. I can't remember it off the top of my head, though. But, yeah, I mean, just closing thoughts on Us, I suppose. It's a good movie. I liked it better than Get Out. There's some major logic flaws within it, though, I guess, but you have to be able to overlook those to accept it as a good movie. It's not hard to overlook those flaws, though. You know, I'm somebody who I'm very kind of picky with my logic flaws within movies, especially horror movies. If there's logic flaws in horror movies, I'm like, it bothers me most of the time. These ones, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just because I was so excited to see the movie or what, but they didn't bother me that much. I was able to get over them and just accept it as a good movie. Oh, one thought I forgot about. The dance scene between the two, the tether version of the mom and the normal version of the mom. The dance scene that they had down this, and this is the climax of the movie, basically. Oh my God, that was one of the best scenes that I've seen in a movie in a long time. I mean, that gave me goosebumps. Which also brings me to another point. Just the choreography of that scene was ridiculous. And I can't imagine how long it took them to get that nailed and get that all worked out and everything. But it kind of brings me to another point that I forgot about that I really wanted to touch on, was the music in Us was incredible. The use of the strings. That there's that one song, I don't know if you want to call it a song or a track or just what, but when they're at the beach, when they first get to the beach and the family's walking and it's that aerial shot and the sand's all kind of squiggly and whatever, and you see it's one of the best shots in the movie, but it's the aerial shot and the family's walking and you see their shadows alongside them, which is very symbolic, because obviously the whole movie is talking about shadows and whatnot, and the shadow people and everything. But within that scene, the music that's playing is it's just such a weird, bizarre sound, but it's so cool. And the music in this film really just blew me away. It was something that I was so just enthralled by. Like, it draws you into the movie that much more, and it makes it that much more creepy. Like, when you hear the violin hits, and the plucks, the scene where the mom's going like this, you know? It just fits so well. And if I had to nominate this movie for any award, it would be for the music. That's the thing that stood out the most to me as, like, how good it was. So if I did have to nominate it for anything, it would be the music. Just the whole, and especially within, like I said, within that dance scene. And that's the climax where it just, everything's building up to that moment, and the way the music just added to that scene was ridiculous. I'm not kidding. Like, both times I watched it, I got goosebumps. It's just incredible. But yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. And if you haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you would have just listened to me ruin the movie, but maybe you like having your movies ruined before you go and see them. I don't know. I can't judge you. I don't know you. So, go and see it though. I still think I would give it probably like a 90%, which is high for me. And it's weird because it's like I said, normally I don't like flaws within my movies, especially horror movies. But something about this movie was just, it was able to get away with it for me, and it didn't matter as much. So The next thing I want to talk about is the Twilight Zone. So, Jordan Peele is the host of this new Twilight Zone remake that they're doing, which is on CBS All Access, which is CBS's, I think it's new, but it's CBS's streaming service, which I looked it up, and according to what I found, I think it's $5.99 a month, but if you want no commercials, it's $9.99 a month, which, I don't know. If you're paying, you probably shouldn't get commercials. So that bothers me a little bit. But like I said, that I watched the comedian episode, which was posted on YouTube for free. So I'm pretty sure it's still there. I watched it today, which as I'm recording this, it's April 5th. So I would imagine they're going to keep it up. Because they want you to watch it, and then they want you to be like, wow, this is really good, and then they want you to go pay for their service. So I watched the comedian episode. It was like 55 minutes, I think, which I appreciate the fact that it's not. That's the one great thing about streaming services, is that you're not tied to a time slot. There's no time restrictions with a streaming service. So an episode of something could be 30 minutes, or an episode of something could be 50 minutes. That's if I had to pick probably one of the biggest positives of streaming services, I would say it's that. Just the fact that there's no time restriction, really. Anyways, the comedian episode. I went into this with not much expectations. It came up in my home page on YouTube as like a recommended video, and I clicked on it, and I was like, oh yeah, like I'd be interested in seeing it, because I knew that they were making this Twilight Zone reboot, and I knew that Jordan Peele was the host of it. And naturally I was really interested. I never really watched the like original Twilight Zone, because obviously I think it was like 1959 or something when it was created. So I'm not super familiar with many of those episodes. I think I may have seen like one or two or three of them maybe, but I'm interested in all things horror. You know, that's kind of what I'm here to talk about partially. So naturally I was really interested. So I think I clicked on it, and I had it open in like a tab for like 2 or 3 days because I was too busy for a while to watch it. And then finally today, I had kind of some time, and I watched it, I think, like, while I was folding laundry or whatever, and I actually didn't end up getting much of my laundry folded because I was so sucked in to watching this episode. Basically, what it is there's a comedian who, all right, this is going to bug me because I know I'm going to screw this up, but it's Kumail Nanjiani. I definitely screwed his name up. I don't know how many times I've heard it pronounced, but you probably know who he is. He's a real life comedian, so it's kind of cool that he was playing a stand up comedian in this episode. But he's the Pakistani guy. He had what? Oh shoot! Now this is gonna bug me. What's the name of that movie? Wow. Hang on, I gotta look this up real quick because it was gonna bug me. But he had a movie, where it was basically a story of his life, and let me see this real quick. The Big Sick is what it was called. I can't believe I forgot that. The Big Sick was his movie, and it's basically a movie about his life, where in that movie he's a comedian doing his stand-up work. He's kind of climbing the ladder and whatnot, and this girl that he's dating gets really, really sick, and that was based off of his what happened in real life. And that movie was really good. It came out in 2017, and I watched it, and that's kind of how I first got to know him. I think that was kind of his big break into mainstream media, I think. I mean, I'm sure within the comedy circles, I'm not a huge comedy fan, but I know a lot of people are. So I'm sure within the comedy world, he was already pretty big, but I think that was kind of his big crossover into mainstream culture as well. I know he also does some voices. I've heard him a couple times on like Bob's Burgers, so he does have like a very distinct voice, and he's got that Pakistani accent, so he does like a lot of voiceover work, I think. But I've heard him on like Bob's Burgers and stuff like that before, so you've probably heard of him. If I messed up his name so bad that you're like, who is that? Just look up The Big Sick, and you'll know who I'm talking about. Anyway, he plays the comedian in this episode of The Twilight Zone, which was cool. The thing that really struck me right off the bat was just the star power that CBS had going into this episode. So they've got, obviously, Jordan Peele as the host, Kumail, which again, I'm so sorry if I'm probably screwing that up so bad. And then Tracy Morgan plays one of the main characters in this episode as well. So they got some legitimate star power in this episode, which was really cool. But essentially, the comedian realizes that he has this power once he enters the Twilight Zone. Everyone he talks about in his on-stage presence, or on-stage performance, rather, disappears. They don't die, they just disappear, so they never existed. And he goes kind of crazy about, he starts to become more popular because when he talks about this, the audience laughs and they love it. And this is kind of the first time he was not that good as a stand-up comedian before then. And this is kind of his first time where he's actually doing well, but it's because he's had this curse put on him where he can talk about these people and everyone will laugh and they'll be entertained. But as he does that, those people cease to exist. So it's a trade-off, obviously. And he slowly learns this, and then he realizes, well, what do I want to do? I could go all the way to the top. This is everything I've ever wanted, but I'm deleting these people from the earth. Or I could stop. And essentially, he kind of drives himself all the way to madness, where at the end, the big final scene is he ends up deleting himself. He speaks about himself on stage and disappears himself. I mean, this blew away my expectations of it, which, again, going into it, I really didn't have, like, any expectations. I saw that they posted a free episode, and I was like, oh, yeah, like, I'll watch that. It was good. It was really good. I actually liked it a lot. Will I pay $5.99 a month for CBS All Access to go watch the other episodes? Probably not. No. Just because I don't want another subscription service. Those subscription services are so annoying. They add up so quickly. It's like, oh, yeah, it's only $5.99 a month, but that's on top of the 4 other ones you already have. So I don't know. I know that I'm like their target demographic, but they just annoy me, to be honest. So will I pay for CBS All Access? Probably not, but if you're somebody who doesn't care and has an extra $5.99 or $9.99 a month to pay for another subscription service, I'm not sure exactly what else they have on there. I think it says like they have like all the CBS like library on there, I think. So you watch like all of Big Bang Theory and stuff like that, but yeah, this says like every episode of Star Trek ever made. Live streaming. I don't know. So, I mean, if you've got that money and you want to go spend it on a streaming service, like, yeah, I'd do it. I guess $5.99 a month for just the Twilight Zone is probably worth it based off of just this one episode, if I had to guess. I mean, I'm sure that the other episodes are as good, if not better, production-wise. This one was really good. I liked it a lot. Just me personally, I'm probably not going to spend the money. I might watch them other ways, if I can find them. But, yeah, we'll see. But I actually really liked it. So, Jordan Peele, I don't know when exactly he filmed these Twilight Zone episodes, because it's kind of crazy. I have no idea how you can have a movie coming out and a TV show coming out at the same time. Like, when did he film these episodes? I would guess that he filmed us first, and then like maybe immediately after they filmed us, like he filmed the Twilight Zone episodes. I suppose, like, you know, he doesn't play that big of a role in each episode because he's only kind of in like 2 scenes each episode, because he'll be like, "You're now entering the Twilight Zone," or whatever, and then like, "This is what we observed in the Twilight Zone today." Like, so he's only kind of in like 2 scenes each episode, so I guess it's not like that hefty of a load for him, but still, I have no idea when they, like, his schedule this past year to 2 years must have been just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of all my notes I've got on both us and the Twilight Zone. I'm definitely probably going to seek out like other episodes of the Twilight Zone, if I'm being honest with myself now that I think about it. Like, I might pay just to kind of check out the other episodes they've got posted. I think on IMDb, like, you go to Rotten Tomatoes and see what they're saying about the Twilight Zone so far, because on IMDb, like, the comedian episode got a 6.4 out of 10, which is surprising to me because, like, I thought it was really good. But, I don't know. Here it is. So far, season 1 of the 2019 remake of the Twilight Zone has a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes, so not terrible. Audience score of 60%. I don't know. I try not to take Rotten Tomatoes too seriously, but I also do like seeing like what other people thought of things, because there'll be some times where I love something and everyone else seems to hate it, or vice versa, where I hate something but everyone else seems to love something. Yeah, they don't have ratings for the individual episodes yet, but so yeah, it's got a 77% so far. I think that there's like, it looks like there's 2 episodes out right now, and then they have 2 more episodes like lined up to premiere April 11th and April 18th. But anyways, I would recommend watching both us and the Twilight Zone. I'm probably going to seek out other episodes of the Twilight Zone and we'll sneak it in. But the next horror movie that I'm really looking forward to is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Well, not by Stephen King, based on the Stephen King book. Because I don't think he really had anything to do with this movie, except that it was based off of his novel, obviously. But that's the next one that I'm really looking forward to. It came out today. I wanted to try and go see it today. I was thinking about doing both Us review and Pet Sematary review in just one episode, but I thought that would be way too cluttered. And after I watched the Twilight Zone episode, I realized I can just do the whole Jordan Peele thing. So this actually worked out really well. But I'm hoping to see Pet Sematary within the week. I might go see it tomorrow or something, and then hopefully we'll get the Pet Sematary episode like next week or something like that. But yeah, I'm hoping that it's better than It, because I hated It, and I'll get into that when I do that Pet Sematary episode. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, this has been episode 1. I think it's I'm pretty happy with how it's gone, I think. So, I know I got a little rambly at some parts, so I apologize for that. But, I mean, that's kind of just how this is. It's very free form. It's going to be just a really free form style to this. Like I said, it's you can tell it's not scripted, I swear to God. I've just got these bullet points I'm going off of. So, but yeah, this has been episode 1. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the videos into playlists, and so the major theme of each video, if it's an MMA themed video, it's gonna go in an MMA playlist. If it's a horror movie themed video, it's gonna go in the horror movie playlist, and then just depending on topics, we'll break them down onto that. But obviously, this will go in a horror movie playlist. But this is episode 1, so yeah. If you enjoyed it, give me a like. If you hated it, leave a comment and tell me why you hated it. Like I'm the type of person where I don't care. I would rather, if you hated it, I would rather you tell me than you don't tell me, because I want to hear. Like, I just like feedback. So whether it's positive or negative, I don't really take it personal. Like, if you hated it, tell me. But if you liked it, tell me too, because then I feel really good about myself. So, yeah, this has been episode 1. I'm really looking forward to these. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, if you liked it, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I don't care. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm looking forward to these. But this has been episode 1 of Tanner Talks, and I'm done talking.